Quisbilly, Huddersfield Town. The most famous goal of Quisbilly's life.
Is this the moment for Lee Fowler? It is. Take your place in Division 2. Huddersfield Town.
Thank you.
And Steve Simonson's boots now. He's missed. Steve Simonson clears the frame of the goal and collapses in a heap of tears. Huddersfield Town are promoted.
Mustafa Schindler has a chance to write his name in Huddersfield Town legend. And he takes that chance!
Hello and welcome to episode 186 of the Andy Takes That Chance podcast. And what a week we've had. More departures. Barry Sheerhouse popping his head above the parapet to remind us that he did something for the town 30 years ago. And the Kevin Nagle. In reply, plenty to keep our minds of what was a dire week of performances on the pitch for Huddersfield Town. I'm Matt Jonny, here to make a silk purse out of a sow's ear, and my knights of blue and white satin. They are Johnny Gillespie and Tom Bradshaw. How are you doing, guys?
Very well, thank you.
Yeah, not too bad, Matt. Good to be on the main pod.
Good to cross over once in a while, isn't it?
Yeah, love it.
Fantastic. Right, okay, so as you will be aware by now, this episode is sponsored by Magic Rock Brewing. If you use our code of AHTTC10, you will be able to use that to get 10% off all online orders at www.magicrockbrewing.com, and check them out on match day as well at the tap room at Birkby, because you will find somebody like Tom milling round if he's up in the north, getting absolutely slaughtered and singing songs at the top of his voice. It's a sight to behold. Right. Sheffield Wednesday versus Huddersfield Town. I cannot wait to get into this one. First off, I want to appreciate the grind and the graft of the Huddersfield Town media department for managing to get 9 minutes 27 of highlights out of this game. So hats off to the hard workers in the town media department. And they are, in all seriousness, very good at what they do. But this wasn't one for the purists. But why always us, eh? I'm sure everyone sacks their manager, don't they, at the bottom before we play them, and they expect a result. And again, Sheffield Wednesday bulleted Xisco Munoz, and in came Neil Thompson, or stayed Neil Thompson as the caretaker. And I think that kind of maybe galvanised Sheffield Wednesday fans a little bit, made the atmosphere less toxic than normal, and maybe added a layer upon the match as to what Darren Moore's return will. Let's gloss over this as best we can, but where do we start with it, really? A bit of a monstrosity, I guess, of a game. Town lined up 3-4-1-2, and I just felt that as much as Darren Moore, he got right last week, this week he's probably given him more to think about, I would imagine. Sorba Thomas has one huge strength for us, which is going down the outside and putting crosses into the box. Playing him as a central 10 negates that ability to do that, so that didn't really work for me with Sorba behind the front two, although I could understand why he's tried it and why he tried him up front against Birmingham. Neither did it work for me either having Tom Edwards as a right wing back. Edwards' pace and fitness is probably questionable for that role, and I don't really think he's able to provide the outlet that we needed, although I did love his interview afterwards, though. He seems like a really top bloke, does Tom Edwards, and definitely one to have a pint with, I think. So maybe you could get him down at Radnor Park one day, Tom. You know, there'd probably be a laugh, wouldn't he? Like I say, he struggled in attack. Defensively, did okay, but just as a wing back, it's a job for a fit, fast guy, isn't it? And probably not what you would describe Tom Edwards as, to be fair. I just felt that those two changes meant that we probably weren't as fluid as we were the week before, and I can understand the Sorba thing, maybe not wanting to play him as a wing-back away from home as well. I think there's maybe an element of protectionism there, although people will argue Sheffield Wednesday were bottom and not won all season. And again, you added that, Johnny, as well, and if that is the case, it's probably something that needs addressing as well in the next window. But tactically, just not quite there. I don't know if you felt the same.
Yeah, I'd agree with you when you're pointing around sort of Thomas. I think, okay, away from home, you're going to sort of slightly differently than you would do at home. But I think I'm surprised that, I wouldn't say negative is probably too strong a word, but I'm surprised he didn't kind of set up a little bit more attackingly. We've seen how we can set up from an attacking perspective, and we've seen how we can bring a few more players who are a little bit more reserved within their positions, like, for example, Edwards being a good example of that. But I think, there's a little bit more spice in it because surely Darren Moore wanted to get the 3 points from a personal level. I know he's a professional manager, and he probably put his personal differences aside, but I'm sure he had extra desire, as we all saw with Warnock, when every week we played one of his ex-clubs, he always seemed to get a result. But yeah, I just think there was a stark lack of kind of real any emphasis or looking to really kind of go for it. And I don't know whether we were a bit more reserved, or this is how Darren Moore looks to play away from home, because we've obviously got the points in previous games away from home, apart from obviously Birmingham. But yeah, it just felt a little bit of an odd occasion. The quality was not there at all. There's only one shot on target all game. It seemed quite slow. I don't know, there's a little bit of being brought down to their level. I know there's not a chasm level between Huddersfield or Sheffield Wednesday in the table, but things that just seemed to kind of be stick a little bit slicker just didn't seem to be there. And to me, it's fair enough for Darren Moore to be trying things out, like say looking to put Sober in 10, and kind of, I guess we'll be able to judge Darren Moore on what he learns from that, and then how he changed the team going forward, certainly post international break. But yeah, it kind of, if you look at Darren Moore's tenure, I think that result kind of poses more questions than it does answers, really, about what Darren Moore team will look like, and then what his kind of tactical approach will be, because it wasn't fantastic.
Tom, do you think Huddersfield Town are trying to pass the ball too much? I know everybody wants to play passing football, but Neil Warnock was pretty much quite direct. I know we could play when we needed to, but we tended to play in the areas where we wanted to, rather than, play through the thirds as such. We'd maybe go from the first to the final third, and everybody would kind of swarm forward and then play in their half if we won the ball. And it just feels like you look at the back. Josh Ruffles has done decent at left centre back. I quite like him there, but you've got him, Hellick, Pearson. There's no, they're all decent defenders, but there's no Ronald Koeman there. And then in midfield, Jonathan Hogg's not the most progressive passer, although he was decent last week against Ipswich. Jack Radoni's final third entries isn't probably what he would like it to be yet. I mean, the first and second third is excellent, but final third. So is it maybe just a case of, maybe it's just a case of a bad day at the office and we're over-analysing it, but do you think maybe they're just trying to pass the ball a bit too much through the pitch, rather than maybe going a bit more direct like a Warnock side would, and that would get the best out of the players?
Yeah, maybe. I mean, out of these 4 games now, I feel like the most successful passages of play we've seen from this kind of squad of players that we've got. I feel like that second half against Coventry, we were very direct using the wings. There was a lot of good movement down the wings, like you mentioned, Sorba Thomas and Josh Cromer. I think in that game, it just seemed like we picked that ball up and then it was like, right, get it wide. And we were halfway up the pitch already. And then I feel like Ipswich was a bit more like that. I mean, every game's felt different. So I don't know if like he's kind of playing it like pre-season almost, Matt. But yeah, Saturday was such a weird game, wasn't it? When you look at the stats, it's mad how sat through 90 minutes of that, and literally both teams, it was almost under 10 shots, wasn't it? I think we had 7 and they had 5, and then they had 1 on target. We didn't. It was such a poor game of football. But maybe we just cancelled each other out too much. It was really scrappy in the middle, wasn't it? Didn't get anywhere. So maybe it needed that. It needed to be a bit more direct than it was. I feel like when we did get into those really good areas is when we moved the ball quick. I like Bergzorg, but I feel like sometimes he holds it up a bit too much up there. There's a few times where he gets that ball and he's got those options out wide, and he's just maybe trying to do a bit too much. and it's just releasing it a bit earlier, moving that ball on quicker potentially.
Let's skim through the chances that we had. So in terms of those chances, there's like you say, a few and far between. Karoma perhaps should score when he lobs the keeper and it goes wide. Dawson, who was a bit flappy for most of the game, wasn't he? Came out and didn't really get a decent punch. Karoma, should he score? Potentially. Hellick gets a toe on a set piece from Sorba Thomas from wide, and that was it. First half, absolutely it. I think they had a deflected shot which was never going in. Second half, to be fair, Patterson misses a bit of a sitter, doesn't he, from the corner, which he should score, and that probably levels up the chance that Karoma had as well. And really, nothing happens until the disallowed goal at the end, and in real time, it looks incredibly soft. The keeper coming for the ball as well. But when you slow it down, you can see Tom Lees' arm go across his face, and you kind of think, okay, that's why the referee's giving it, and it's understandable why the referee would give it if there's an arm across the keeper's face, because they get given up and down the country every week, whether you agree with it or not. In the letter of the law, it's a foul, isn't it? I mean, if you watch it from behind the goal, there looks very little in it at all, but from the side on, it looks a bit more like maybe Lees has impeded him. I'm not mad about it. I think maybe he's kind of it's just one of those things. Sometimes you get it, sometimes you don't. I would probably say more times than not you don't get it, and I'm not crying hard done by Tom here. It's just one of those things. I think when if it happened against us, we'd probably be saying the same thing.
Yeah, I'm totally with you. I mean, I watched it on iPlayer, so I didn't get to go up there, but as soon as it kind of happened, that's what I saw. It's that angle. It was like, if he's not giving this, it's because of that elbow. Like you said, it's a weird one, isn't it? Because naturally you probably do jump like that if you're going up you're challenging a goalkeeper who's obviously got that advantage with the hands up in the air. So Lees is putting as much in as possible to get up there. He doesn't really contact him, but from where the ref stood, he's seen it and probably thought, right, there's an elbow out there. It's a great finish from Harrop, poor lad. Would have been his first goal, wouldn't it, this season? So
first league goal, yeah.
First league goal, yeah. So I agree with it. I mean, did we even deserve it really anyway? It's one of those, isn't it? It'd have been a bit of a snatching 3 points if we'd have got it, to be honest. Yeah.
What about you, Johnny? I think me and Tom are kind of saying, yeah, fair enough. Is it you going to round it up?
Yeah, very, very similar. I mean, I was just, whilst you were both talking there, I think the reason why I wasn't kind of too upset or irate is because what Tom just said there, from a very pragmatic point of view, I didn't think we deserved the 3 points. I didn't feel it was too unjust. I think from Tom Lee's perspective, it's a classic argument which we'll have, I mean, like I say, week in, week out, up and down the country. Players got to jump. I've seen a few people say, obviously, the keeper's coming out to him rather than him more backing into the keeper, which I guess if you're Tom Lees, you're kind of thinking, well, I'm in my space. I'm kind of not as a sharp elbow, but my arm's up there. Okay. The keeper's kind of put himself in that position. I've won the ball and it's gone in the back of the net. But as we know in modern day football, those things get given. And if it was the other way around, Nichols would probably be claiming for a free kick and we'd probably get it. So yeah, not too, don't feel too hard done by, really.
No, I think the only people hard done by were the 3,200-ish away fans who went to the game. And to be honest, these things happen, don't they? There's no guarantee of quality when you buy your ticket, is there? It's just it's a bit of a raffle, if you like, whether you get an absolute classic like the 4-all where Jordan Rhodes gets all 4, or you get let's say a less than a classic today. That's not be too.
I guess at £5,000 a ticket though, it's slightly harder to.
Yeah, 33 quid. It's yeah. That's and that's a different topic of conversation altogether.
Not cheap and cheerful by any stretch. I don't think.
No, absolutely not. But I'll tell you what we'll do. Let's go to our cohorts from Sheffield Wednesday, the Wednesday Till I Die podcast, and I got the views of James Mappin, who is the host of that, to get the angle from the Hillsborough end.
Certainly not a spectacle. I think, to be honest as well, Sheffield Wednesday and Huddersfield are going to be down near the bottom come the end of the season. I think Huddersfield were probably one of the worst sides that's been to Hillsborough this season so far. You can see that you're really lacking that cutting edge up front. I know you had a few chances, but a lot went begging. Got in some good areas, but just that final cross into the box just wasn't there for you. In regards to the disallowed goal, I thought it was harsh at first. I've watched it back. Sometimes they get given, sometimes they don't. With that referee, he was an absolute shocking referee by the way. I thought some of the decisions that he gave were ludicrous, to be honest, not just for us as well. I think, there were twice where Patterson went down in our box. He gave a free kick straight away. Gregory went down, halfway into our half. Again, gave a free kick. Neither were free kicks, to be honest, and he bought it every single time. Every time the ball went in the box, he gave a free kick to the other team. It was just a really, really stop-start game, which I thought the referee ruined it, to be perfectly honest. It was a weird one for us as well. Manager being sacked in midweek. Got Neil Thompson in. I thought, the performance was a lot better than what it has been in recent weeks, which just goes to show how bad it's actually been since Cisco took charge at the start of the season. So, it's a point for us. We needed all three playing teams that are down near the bottom. When you're struggling, they are 6 pointers, and I think we missed a real chance, to be honest. We had a couple of chances. I think Patterson perhaps should have done better with the one from 6 yards out, and Smith, how he didn't put his head on that cross from Volks, I'll never know. How he scored 20 goals last season is still a mystery to me, to be honest. But a really poor game all around. Not one I'm going to be rushing back to watch. We just move on. It would have been nice to get a win against Darren Moore's side. Obviously, on his first return to Hillsborough, but it is what it is.
There you go. Sounds like James had as much fun as we did, and I don't think there's too much to agree with. Disagree with. Sorry, with what he said. It was crap, and I think James saw it the same way. So there we go.
Do you know what, Matt? What I found really interesting, what James just said about the referee, and he was giving so many free kicks, and I know we said the game was rubbish, but it was so stop-start, wasn't it? There was a point where I just threw my hands up in there thinking, why you there's so many little stupid free kicks that he didn't need to give, and it just ruined any flow of the game kind of taking off. And it's amazing how much that kind of dictates a game sometimes, isn't it?
Yeah, it wasn't great. Like I say, I can't really argue too much from my vantage. I think he was great. It just penalised a lot of soft things, but he did it both ways. Like James said, he did it both ways, didn't he? So at least he was consistent.
Well, yeah.
So it's worse, isn't it, when they give everything to one side, or it feels like it is. So so let's pick up a couple of topics, really. What are your thoughts on people going after Darren Moore already online? For me, it seems way too harsh. I know I didn't enjoy the Birmingham game at all. I thought the Birmingham game was every bit as bad as a Fotheringham performance, or what we saw under Fotheringham and Danny Schofield last season. And I didn't think much of the Sheffield Wednesday game, but he's not really been here 2 weeks. Is it 2 weeks he's really been here? I mean, Neil Warnock had a good first game and lost the next two 4-0, didn't he? Admittedly, against the champions and playoff finalists. But I just think, there needs to be an element of patience. I think this is always the case, isn't it? When something's not broken, I think in the minds of a lot of Huddersfield fans, it wasn't broken, and so therefore there was no need to fix it, kind of thing. So we've taken out a decent manager in Neil Warnock. I understand that why they've wanted to make the change. I thought it was a bit soon, if I'm honest. But on the flip side, it gives Darren Moore more time this season to implement what he wants to do, and he's obviously trying to get his point across quite early, and it's going to take a little bit of time. So I think it's strange to see people calling for. There were people genuinely calling for his head, and I know people just like to sound off after a frustrating game, don't they? And it's empty, and it probably means nothing. But I think people perhaps just need to allow themselves to be frustrated. It's okay to be frustrated, but in context, it's probably going to happen for a little bit. and there's a big game against QPR coming up, which we can't really afford to lose at this stage because there are sort of 4 or 5 candidates for the bottom, and at the minute we're one of them. So we need to push ourselves up the table. But for me, a little bit harsh, and it's going to take a bit of time. What do you reckon?
I think there's a few moving pieces with this. I think I saw someone put on Twitter, if you look at Warnock's first few games this season, obviously he's a loss, draw, loss. He's had a full pre-season, just obviously talking this season, not last season. And when we had Warnock, and there was a few people, within our little communication channel, not naming names, who kind of made the point that if it wasn't Warnock's name above the door, would fan opinion be a little bit different on whose name was above the door? Who was managing the team?
Yeah, Cosy.
That's it. But I think it's a little bit of a classic case of that, isn't it? That's one element of it. But I think Warnock quite rightly earns that bit of respect, that bit of okay, keep your powder dry kind of situation amongst fans. It's the other thing with more that he's the man after the man. So it's going to be a little bit of a tough gig. Whoever picked up that mantle. Added to that was the club's probably a little bit of a PR situation where they kind of said, we found the man who's going to take us forward, and he's just become available. That probably didn't help either, which I think plays into a little bit. But I think in the grand scheme of things, it's quite cliche now, isn't it? But he does need to be given time. We know the squad quality is towards the lower end of the table. We're aware of that. The improvements weren't made in the window. None of those two factors have anything to do with Darren Moore. Equally, he hasn't had a lot of time in training field. He's had midweek away games, which haven't helped either with time to put his ideas across. He does now have a 2-week window of time. We've only got, I think, 4 players that will leave on international duty. A couple of them aren't necessarily kind of first teamers week in, week out as well. So it's quite fortunate he's got that bit of time straight leading into what is now a massive game against QPR, who are one of those teams that we will be up against to go down. It is like James said from Sheffield Wednesday, from their perspective, last Saturday, a home game, that's a 6-pointer. That's what we've got this Saturday. We didn't lose our 6-pointer last week, but we can't afford to get anything really other than a win this week. So I think in regards to Darren Moore, the jury is out. It's not been a fantastic start, but I think there's good reasons as to why it hasn't been. But it's like anything, you will need to start getting points quickly, and a ball draw against Wednesday and a defeat at QPR isn't the right way to kind of win back anybody who's probably not very happy as we sit here right now, to be honest.
What do you think he needs to do, Tom, during the international break as well? For me, it's just a case of sitting down with the analysts and trying to understand the players as much as possible, and really their limitations as well as their abilities, if you like, because what Neil Warnock did, and I hate to constantly, he's going to get compared to Neil Warnock all season, isn't he? But what he did was he effectively played to our strengths, didn't he? Which is essentially putting the ball in the box from set pieces or open play and getting enough bodies in there, and effectively that's us giving the ball to Sorba Thomas and letting him cross the ball, isn't it? And really, that's probably going to be the plan through to January, when we really need to strengthen the squad to avoid being sucked into some. So for me, it's quite simple as that. I don't know how you think, or if there's anything else you think that maybe he could do. Maybe there's a trialist he could look at. Maybe there's all sorts of different things, perhaps, that I haven't thought about, Tom.
Yeah, I think that's pretty much it. I'd like to see a consist. I'd like to see like a base of a formation forming, kind of something there. And I think he has used these 4 games to try out a little bit what players can do. So after this international break, I'd like to think, right, this is it going forward. This is what he thinks this squad is capable of putting together a decent little run or something. And then, what is it? It's 2 weeks, isn't it? I mean, if we had 4 games in 2 weeks, so it's a short amount of time. He's now got this week where he can just be on the training pitch and get to know, like Johnny says, only a couple going out really. So really get to know this squad, Have a look at what Warnock was doing. Really, I mean, it's no shame in it, is there? If it was working in some of those games, you've got to take those strengths and kind of move forward with those for now until he kind of gets in those players that he wants to play his system with. Because, like you said, Matt, there's certain players in this squad, and there's a certain way that we play successfully, and if you're trying too much, you're going to struggle.
Mm-hmm. I don't think there's anything to add, really, Johnny, is there? Unless I think maybe a couple of behind closed doors friendlies that he can get to know other players well enough. I mean, a couple of the fringe ones, Pat Jones will be out with Wales under 21s, won't he? Utah's away. I can't remember the other ones that have been called. Has DR been called up? I can't remember. I haven't even looked, to be honest, and good luck to them who've gone out. But yeah, it's essentially just trying to work out the best way to go forward, like Tom said. And he does seem to like the back three. It's just what's in front of it, really, isn't it?
Yeah, like I say, the test will be what we come out with. If we can get a bit more of a formula, if he can get a bit of understanding about the players that he's got, the resources that he's got. Like Tom says, we were getting results, and obviously Darren Moore is his own man. But like I said, there's no shame looking at what's worked for that squad before. I think Darren Moore's got to have a plan to try and keep collecting points nice and steadily until January. There's been small little sounds that there might be some money to be spent in January. We'll keep the jury's out on that one, but certainly for him, he's got what he's got until then, and whether he can look to kind of see a couple of players that he might not be aware of because they've been in and out of the team, or they kind of sat a little bit kind of more on the periphery of the first team squad that he might want to bring through. I know he's quite keen on developing players. That's one of the things the club mentioned when they hired him. That's one of the things they looked at in Darren Moore's kind of CV, was his ability to develop players. So maybe he's got a bit of time to look at that as well. We're quite aware of the younger players at the squad, in the team, because they've been part of the squad and had to be part of the squad just due to kind of bodies at the moment. So I don't think it's going to be any unhidden gems in that sense. But I mean, maybe a bit more of a different kind of viewpoint from their progression might help, coming from Darren Moore as opposed to Warnock. And I guess international breaks are a good time to do that.
Right, so if you thought you had it tough this week, then spare a thought for Tom Hutchison. Who is Tom Hutchison, I hear you ask? Well, he is the poor chap who put his hand up to say, I'll do the away day audio log this week. And he went to both Birmingham and Sheffield Wednesday. And we've got a bit of a combined... Yeah, poor Tom. So we've got a bit of a combined away day log here. And Tom picks up the story on his way to Birmingham.
Good evening, Matt. Good evening, listeners to the podcast. Just on the way to Birmingham now. We're about 40 minutes away. Just in the team news, he's made a few changes. Big game on Saturday, so I can kind of see why he's resting a few. I assume Hogg's injured after Saturday. Looks quite defensive, but I can see he's going for a point today, to be honest. I think another point away in the road will be a good result. I think Birmingham will probably expect to win, so I reckon if we can keep them to 0-0 for as long as possible, and then maybe nick one in the end, that would be great. My ETA is 7:37, and I still need to pick up my tickets and find parking, so hopefully I'll make it. You'll find out in about 5 seconds.
Right, we're 10 minutes late, and we've missed the first goal. The shout wasn't too loud, so I wasn't sure if it was Huddersfield, but I checked my phone and it is Birmingham, up the town. That's 2-0 Birmingham. Unfortunately, I was in the stadium to see that goal. Pearson's been megged on the wing. Their players through, a bit of a scramble in the middle, and then he's coming in the back post and smashed it into the roof of the net. I can't see he's coming back from this now. All right, final score, Birmingham City 4, Huddersfield Town 1. Sorry, Matt, I've been a bit useless. I missed the last 2 goals. We left on 85th minute just to skip the traffic and get home. So I can't really talk about them. Second half wasn't much better. You can't believe it's the same side that we watched on Saturday. Completely shambles from defence to attack. Fair enough, he tried to change it at half-time, brought a few subs on, but they didn't really do anything. Individually, we're pretty poor today. Just makes Saturday a massive game now. I'm confident we can bounce back. It's a big game, they'll be up for it, especially with Darren Moore. So, we'll see. Up the town. Good afternoon, all. Back again. Sheffield Wednesday versus Huddersfield Town today. 2:20 we're at the ground. We're a bit more organised this week. So team news is out. Hogg's back in the sides, which I'm pleased about. We think we really missed Hogg on Tuesday night. Karoma's in. Edwards is in. Yeah, I quite like the lineup. He's obviously trying to freshen it up. I think some of the ideas that we tried to implement on Tuesday kind of didn't work, so we went back to basics. Sheffield Wednesday, obviously they've just swapped the manager, so it's a classic Huddersfield Town timing, really. Playing the same when they just changed the manager. Hoping we don't concede an early goal, because I think if we do, the Sheffield crowd will really get behind the team. I know I said this last week, but if we can keep it to 0-0 for a while and maybe nick one later on, that'd be great. I am expecting a win, but I don't think we'll do it easy. So, yeah, I'll see you all on the ground. Half-time score, Sheffield Wednesday 0, Huddersfield Town 0. It's not been a great half of football, to be honest. We've had some set pieces in some good positions, but we've either hit the wall or it's come to nothing. They've been all right. I've not been worried about them getting a goal, but they've definitely had the ball in some good areas. I think in open play they look a bit better than us. Going forward, Berg's always been decent, to be fair. He's looked lively. Just needs to get him the ball. Radoni as well. He's made some good runs forward. But we just lack that cutting edge in the final third. Second half, shooting our way. I'd take a 0-0 at half time if we get a couple in the second half and they're shooting our way. Let's see what happens up the town. 60 minutes in, still 0-0. He's making a couple of changes. I think Kean Harrott's coming on and Ben Wiles. Yeah, again, not being great stuff from town, but we've got 20 minutes just to get something. Come on, team. Final score, Sheffield Wednesday 0, Huddersfield Town 0. Yeah, that was pretty poor, to be honest. The second half wasn't any better than the first. I don't know what it is, but in that final third, we have absolutely nothing. We look scared to shoot. Passes just aren't falling to feet. If we got a goal then, it would have been a lucky tap-in. Yeah, it's just not good enough, really. Last 2 games have been so disappointing, especially after last Saturday. I don't know what's happened, but international break now gives them a couple of weeks on the training pitch. Darren Moore can get his message across a bit better, I hope. QPR next at home, I think, and I've seen QPR lost 4-0 today. So, yeah, I would not be surprised to see Ainsworth lose his job, which doesn't make things any easier when we play them next. But, yeah, we'll see on that one. Not much else to say. Individually, we're pretty poor. Don't think anyone. Defence, Hellick had a good game. Pearson was all right. But attacking wise, yeah, absolutely nothing. Very poor. Very disappointing. Yeah, 2 very average games. And sorry, lads, it's going to be a pretty depressing podcast, I think you have to do on Sunday. Nevertheless, we go again. 2 home games coming up. So hopefully things pick up after that. We'll see. Thanks, everyone.
Have we checked if Tom's all right? Has anyone heard from Tom?
Absolutely loved the start of that. It was like,
yeah,
going to the ground late. I don't know. Town are losing. Up the town.
Really wanted. He said,
Brilliant.
We've got to keep it 0-0 for as long as possible. And they'd scored before it even got into the ground. It's amazing. You can't write stuff like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think what we'll do now is we'll take a very swift break and we'll be back in a moment. Okay, so we are back. Johnny, Tom, and myself, Matt, in the box seat this week. Right, so let's change tack now. So we've had enough football, haven't we? So let's talk a little bit of politics, maybe. Yeah, obviously, very, very not the most fun thing to talk about. So let's have some fun first. And Barry Sheerman has popped back up, and I'm not a massive fan of Barry Sheerman, as long-time listeners may recall. I'm not anti-Labour by any means at all, by any means. I'm just not overly fond of politicians who live way out of the area, parachuting themselves in every bloom. The local MP should live and breathe the town and understand everything that's going on within the town. And he doesn't. And, so for me, I'm not the biggest fan in the world, but however, that's by the by. And I thought, do you know what? Every time he pops up, we should think about having a Barry Sheerman klaxon. And we've got the Josh Karoma Conch and the Barry Sheerman one. And the only thing I could come up with was this.
If he wants to be the big dog, Barry.
That is Hulk Hogan, who has obviously never seen a dog in his life because dogs don't tend to go Baru. But we'll talk about Baru Sheerman. Hulk Hogan. I've never seen a dog, brother. But we'll go to Barry Sheerman. So the reason why we're talking about Barry Sheerman is because he has popped up on social media with a tweet, and his tweet said, "Can I remind the owners of Huddersfield Town Football Club that when I persuaded the chairman of ICI to provide the land for the new stadium, the gift was specifically for the people of Huddersfield, and Kirklees Council was to be the custodian with no private beneficiaries." And I mean, that's understandable why he would say that. And there's probably many reasons why he's done this and done this in public rather than pick up a phone to Kevin Nagle or whatnot. And Kevin Nagle responded. It does seem that it's mostly in response to Kirklees Active Leisure struggling and pulling out of the stadium. And Kevin Nagle has advised on social media that he'll see what he can do. So I think Barry's maybe getting in on social media and sort of saying, okay, if you buy it, then don't rip the people of Huddersfield off, etc. But anyway, Kevin replied with, "We will be assessing the matter at hand. Continuous deficits on the Cal side year over year, a lack of adequate capital investment into the Huddersfield pool and its related structures, a refusal to invest capital into the stadium as a 40% owner, inadequate maintenance of the infrastructure and surrounding stadium, and quickly abandoning a constituency that has been served for many years. Still, I'm optimistic there is a win-win-win solution if we use our common sense and think about our community." I mean, everybody's sort of gathering around Kevin and saying Kevin's owned Barry, etc., haven't they, on there? But maybe Barry's a slyer old devil than what he appears, because he's pulled Kevin Nagle out into the open with this, hasn't he? And he's forced a response, and he's forced Kevin Nagle to sort of speak about it, which privately. So why is this going on? And the reason why this is going on is because Kirklees Council are imposing cuts across various local services to address a large budget deficit. To this end, it has launched a public consultation over the future of leisure centres. The council has confirmed only Huddersfield Leisure Centre and Spen Valley Leisure Centre at Cleckheaton are safe, with all other Kirklees active leisure sites at risk of closure. The council's consultation also stated that Cal will be legally withdrawing as the operator of the Stadium Health and Fitness Club. As a result, the council is seeking a private operator. I mean, that private operator could be Kevin Nagle, or he could look for someone else to fill that gap. However, the sort of worry I have with this is if Kirklees Active Leisure and their thousands of members across the entire business can't make it work, then a single site which will have severe overheads because it's heating a swimming pool 24/7, amongst other things, and absolutely huge energy prices, etc. at the minute, probably don't make this an incredibly attractive option at the moment. It's one thing that this has been played out in public, Johnny, but there seems to be kind of a lot of politicking and moving pieces on the chessboard in place here, doesn't there? And I think there's probably more going on and more that we're unaware of. And I think Kevin Nagle has also thrown in the hand grenade that KSDL effectively haven't run the stadium. Well, I'm paraphrasing, but he's sort of saying or insinuating that KSDL haven't really kept up the maintenance of the stadium over the last 25 years, and there are now bits and pieces falling apart, and it needs circa 10 million of repairs in there, which as the operator and as the people that run they should have been footing. But on the other hand, Huddersfield Town have probably benefited from relatively low rental agreements as well. So it hasn't made a lot of money, but has it not made money because KSDL didn't have anything going on there for circa 15 years or so? There's a lot really, and a lot that we can unpack in this episode, and we may look into this a bit deeper for next week. But what do you make of it, Johnny? Let's just come to you first. I know you got a smile on your face. You're a man who loves the gym. Your social media pictures belay that you sat there in your tiny white underpants at the minute, which everyone can't see. Flexing.
I've had a long day, but we'll leave that there. I mean, I guess there's not a lot that qualifies me to kind of answer this question. Really, I guess it's one of those where it's a little bit of a spat, for want of a better phrase. Probably a bit too strong on Twitter. Well, we've had 3 chairmen that have tried. 2 have failed. I mean, one kind of ran out of time. The other one kind of gave up on trying to kind of change the ownership dynamic of the stadium. Whether Nagle will be the man who does it, whether that's based on timing, because obviously I think the rope that KDSL or KSDL got is getting shorter and shorter, and obviously Nagle does have desires to improve not just the stadium but the whole match experience. Whether he does something with the pool and the fitness centre is part of the stadium, so I guess it's, do you retain it how it is? Do you look to kind of move it into something else? Do you look to split it out? I think council pools aren't necessarily as attractive as independent gyms and different things like that. Could you look to kind of, I get your point that if it's not worked as a Kirklees actual leisure gym, would you want to take it on? You're probably not going to make a lot of profit for the football club, but I mean, there's a lot of gyms that are quite successful that kind of operate in a different way and look a little bit different to council pools and council gyms. So could he go down that dynamic, or did you look to side off a bit of space and get that kind of match day arena that he's interested in by way of a pub or a bar or something like that? Could you utilize that space attached to the football club? Who knows? The inner workings of, Cal, KSDL, the stadium and that kind of side of things. It's one of them where none of us really know what the situation is. The football club will always be the main money men in these conversations. I mean, they bring the biggest gates. They've got the most money of any sports team or private company operates out of that stadium. And without Huddersfield, not to kind of wind up any Giants fans, but without Huddersfield paying their element, that stadium would really struggle. Certainly without the sports teams, the stadium would be a white elephant that wouldn't get used 2-3 times a year. And I know Dean Hoyle and other people have lent on that. Certainly in the Premier League, I think there was something around us looking to kind of get more control to allow us to do more things in the stadium. And part of that was to kind of pay a bit more by way of maintenance and upkeep, and that didn't seem to work. So it's interesting. It's not something you really want to be played out on Twitter between your football club owner and your MP, but I guess it gives us something to look at and a bit more of a conversation piece. But I feel British politics and an American billionaire businessman from California, you've got quite polar opposites there. And I think the way that we do things in what is a little bit of a stuffy culture versus America might kind of frustrate and annoy Nagle. Is probably just like, yeah, we'll just buy it. Why can't we do it? So it'll be interesting to see what it works. Sheerman versus Nagle, not on about fisticuffs like it was with Pozza and Nagle. One about just, the political battle will be an interesting one. Both very different cultures. But if ultimately the club can try and benefit and retain a bit more of the, what Nagle wants to do, which is on match going experience, the catering, all those kind of things, all these kind of roll into one, be it Kirklees, Cal or KSDL, they all kind of, it's all the same hat, isn't it, really, ultimately, council monies. If that Huddersfield can have a bit more of a control over that, then it's not a bad thing, but I think we're a long way from that being the case.
Tom, there's a lot of problems really with where the stadium is in some respects. Leeds Road isn't the nicest trip down, isn't it? To it's busy. It's like I live in Leeds and 4/7 doesn't matter when you go on there. It's just gridlock traffic, and Leeds Road feels like the same. Down at the stadium, I think Phil Hodgkinson's idea was to turn it into a conferencing facility, so they could use the stadium. And try and get more footfall, because generally footfall's not great down there because it's kind of tucked away. Huddersfield doesn't get a lot of footfall anyway. There are jobs in the town centre are going down slightly. People are starting to work from home more often. So the amount of people that go into Huddersfield, you kind of can't have different different sort of hubs, if you like, for people to go to, because it's not big enough, in to do that, or there's not enough people for it to be big enough to do that. And you go down to the stadium, and Kingsgate is being redone. So when Kingsgate gets redone, there's going to be a new multiplex cinema in there, which apparently is supposed to be really good. What does that say then for the future of the cinema down at the ground? Is there going to be a problem with the cinema at the stadium? Because people will probably start to go to the shiny new one, which has the decent screens and the comfy reclinable seats, etc. So, and then if the stadium goes, then what happens to Pizza Hut and Costa next to it? Because those two probably depend on either the football and rugby or people going to the stadium. So the whole thing could fall down at any moment. And that includes the Legends Bar, which is used during the week by people coming out of the gym and people on a Saturday. So there's a lot there which could go wrong, and there's not a lot to get people down to the stadium other than the club shop when the two teams aren't playing. And I agree with Johnny. If Huddersfield Town aren't in that stadium, Huddersfield Giants can't play there because they can't afford it. And I'm a Huddersfield Giants fan. So the whole thing points to sort of the failure of HD1 in many ways, which was never going to happen either, because there aren't that many people interested in skiing that wouldn't already go to Escape and the one at Manchester. It was such a silly, stupid idea whereby they thought they could just copy what was successful. And this is what frustrates me a lot about Huddersfield in the last 20 years. It just sort of looks to copy and imitate rather than do something innovative like it used to, like maybe it used to do. And there's just not enough people, not enough footfall, not enough interest in that area to make something successful. And I don't like that that's negative. But on the flip side, if you can get something there which is going to draw people in, which is different, then all of a sudden you've got footfall and people there willing to sort of hang around a bit longer than what they would, for the football. Because let's be honest, everybody at the footballs, it finishes at 5 o'clock and the whole place is dead by 5:30, apart from one or two autograph hunters. It needs things down. And Kevin Nagle's not daft. He's seen this already. He wants people down there earlier and he wants people leaving later because that generates money. But the problem is there's nothing really down. Get people to go there when there's no event on. And that is the sorry state that it's in. And with it being tucked off of Leeds Road as well, which isn't exactly the ideal place anyway, because you've got to cut through that traffic and come off the motorway, etc. if you're coming from our end. It all points to a bigger problem really than a swimming pool. And that's just that it's just not a place where people go. So why would, I don't know, Bannatynes be interested in that, taking over as a private entrepreneur? David Lloyd wouldn't touch it because they can't get a tennis court and stuff there. There's your big chains. And the issue as well is that it's probably not in I don't mean this cruelly, but it's not in the most affluent area either. So you either look for a cheap gym, which doesn't have a pool, or the higher end stuff, which cost 80, 90, 100. This is an area I work in, 80, 90, 100 quid a month. And people from around there aren't going to pay that for a gym because it's a luxury that, I wouldn't pay for. So there's so much there to unpack. And the fact is, can it afford a swimming pool owned by a football club to be used by players or the council? And I'm not entirely sure. And with other things happening in the town centre, it's going to draw people away from there anyway. So the future be really interesting over the next 10 years because Halifax has found a niche, hasn't it, with the Peace Hall? So that's drawing people in with the Peace Hall, which is fantastic, by the way. Leeds is Leeds. It's all encompassing. Leeds wants a massive brain drain from the rest of the heavy woolen areas and Bradford, etc., to come into Leeds and stay in Leeds. It's trying to draw more people in and out of places like Huddersfield. So it's got such a fight on its hands to be relevant and to find something for people to actually go and bother and care about. It's difficult, isn't it? And they're in such a tough position. And the council are in a tough position. Anyone who's private's in a tough position. What can they do down there to make Huddersfield somewhere to go and somewhere to stay for longer so that they can open other things which will then start to generate money around it? Because, in terms of leisure, your eateries and stuff, that's all going in at Kingsgate. Huddersfield, I think Huddersfield doesn't even have a TGI Fridays, does it? It's one of the only places in the country that doesn't have something basic, a basic chain like that. It's crazy, and that's all going to go in Kingsgate, and that's great for people who go to Kingsgate. But for the stadium, it's going to have a negative effect on your day-to-day stuff, and I don't really know what they can do down there to pull people back, because there are not enough people in Huddersfield. There's not enough people going into Huddersfield, so it's such a difficult situation. I know I've painted a bit of a negative picture there, and the new leisure centre is decent as well, isn't it? If you've ever been to Huddersfield Sports, and it's actually quite good. I've been in a few times, and it's decent. So, is it big enough? Is Huddersfield big enough for the two of them? This town ain't big enough for the two of us. So, there's a lot to sort of unpack in the Tom.
Yeah, I think the really sad thing is HD1 might have been there's some silly things in there like the ski slope and all that jazz, but that feels a lifetime ago when I saw the sketches for that thing the first time.
90s, mate. 90s.
Yeah, so it's like that was the way forward, and I think you talk about what kind of successfully works in a small town now. I think when I come back home, I really enjoy going to like Holmfirth, Slough, Marsden, that kind of small village feel where you could have, the way HD1 was going to work was it would have felt like a nice little community hub where people would probably come. It's not in the town centre so much, but you'd walk down there. They were going to have, like, as I remember, it was like shops against the river, overlooking the river, things like that. Paint a picture of people kayaking down the river and stuff like that. It's
past the shopping trolleys and cars, yeah.
Yeah, but it's just sad that like there's not even been an inkling of that has happened in all this time. And I get the funding and all that fell through, but it's just, I think that's what it needs to be. It needs to be somewhere where you go in out your way and being like, there's nothing kind of like that in the town centre. I think the walk, if people are getting public transport, the routes down from the train station, bus station have got to be better on a match, even just on a match day, they've got to be better. Crossing that road and things. It was the cable
cars.
Yeah, cable cars down. What a drawing in point that'd have been like.
I mean, that might have actually worked out a lot. I know it got a lot of mockery, but it's different. It's different. Where else has sort of I remember going to London when we were supposed to play QPR last year, and sadly the Queen died. And we went to I can't remember where it is. I think it's not the O2, the XL Arena. I think to see to take my little one to a Jurassic World convention thing, because he was madly into dinosaurs at that point. And we got the tube to one stop that I can't remember it is, but then you got a cable car over the river to the XL Arena, and that was actually really cool, actually. And I remember sat there thinking, do you know what? Actually, a lot of people mocked the idea at the time, and it's one thing going over quite a nice river and being able to see scenic London, isn't it? And then the other one sort of going over Huddersfield and the mills and the gas and stuff like that. I mean, it's slightly different, and with the locals throwing things at you, throwing rocks at you and stuff, I'm sure. But it's different, and that's what it needs to do. It needs to dare to be different. It needs a hook. And the golf, I forgot the driving range is going to
it, Matt. The driving
that's knackered, and the hotel plans have gone as well. The hotel's not going there now. I don't know what they can do, mate. I honestly don't know what to do.
There's so much space there for something to be done.
Well,
but it is in Huddersfield, which unfortunately is seeing nothing at the moment. And I get Sheerman piping up about this, but like you scroll through his Twitter and all it is moaning about stuff, and it's a bit like, come on, show a bit of action towards something. If you're that passionate about your town, can we see a bit of action there rather than just a bit of moaning?
And this is where you have to kind of take issue with Barry. I understand what he's saying. He's sort of saying, well, if someone's going to take the pool or the stadium, don't rip them off. That's essentially what he's saying, is don't ramp the prices up and rip off the local public. And I get why he's saying that. But the problem at the same time is it needs private investment into Huddersfield, because Huddersfield is skint, as a place is skint. It's got no real... I know there are some decent businesses there, but there's not really anything massive which is drawing in jobs and drawing in people from other areas to go there and work and to do other things. So it's difficult. It needs something big. It needs like a big company to move in. Why would they move into Huddersfield?
That's it. Yeah.
There's such a I think this government has really pushed the big city thing, haven't they, in the north, and they're pushing Manchester and Leeds. And you look at Oldham and Rochdale after the effects they've had, because Manchester's increased. It's killed them. It's absolutely killed them. And unfortunately, if Leeds continues to go that way, Huddersfield could suffer badly as well, because no one will want to go. Everyone will want to go into Leeds, and I already live here. You know, I'm if you I don't mean to use the term loosely, but it's like economic migrant. I moved in because the jobs were here and the decent jobs were here, and but for other things as well. So it's in a rut, isn't it? Huddersfield's in a rut. Where does it go? And it's difficult to. I can't offer any solutions, and I don't want to run the place down because I think Huddersfield's great. I think there's some really fabulous places there, and you mentioned them, Tom. You mentioned Marsden, Slough, or Slaithwaite, whatever you want to call it, and all these places. But if people are going there, they're not going to the town centre, you know, and that again that brings its own issues. I'm generally not sure what they can do to improve it, and I know people. It's got such a bad reputation as well now that, you know, you saw the sort of fighting and things like that, and the knives and what have you. That video that was going viral, and it's horrible to see because that again puts people off going in as well. And there's a lot of people wanting to run it down and do YouTube videos and say, look at all the pound shops and bookies and charity shops and vape shops, etc. There's nothing here. It's rubbish, blah blah blah. And it's so sad because it's got so many top class buildings in Huddersfield, so many listed buildings. It's got some of the most listed buildings in the country in Huddersfield Town Centre, you know, per square capita or something. And it is a cool place if it's treated properly, and it's just run out of things to show the world, unfortunately. And it just needs a shake up. And Kingsgate's a good start, but it needs more, doesn't it? It needs some form of prosperity. And I hate to sort of end that on a negative. I just don't see. Unless there's a private investor like a Kevin Nagle coming in and sticking a flag in the ground and saying, right, we're going to do this, this, and this, and this. I'm going to bring over this, this, and this. Then I don't really understand why the council could stop that. I mean, everything, you know, about Kirklees, the ground rent's obviously going to be a lot cheaper than Leeds, you know, or Manchester. But it's that problem, isn't it? Getting people out of the houses to go there, and that is the trick, and that's what you've got to get them to do, and you've got to give them something to do it for. And you know, swimming pool's not it, is it? So
no. It's
anyway, that was cheery.
Well, yeah, I know, but this kind of thing does need to bring it up. It's probably a wider. It's bigger than just Huddersfield, isn't it?
It's bigger than us, yeah.
There's towns all over the country are struggling. Towns are
especially with the effects of Brexit as well, and you know there was a lot of funding from the EU, and so I don't mean to turn this into a political thing. I know it's a hot topic still after.
Texas political channel.
Yeah, but it's just what happens, isn't it? And the towns project hasn't really helped massively. Yeah. So it's difficult, and I know there's not a lot of money, and there's a lot of factors outside of the UK which have affected the lack of money as well. So it's not all the government's fault or anything. There's global factors at play as well. So it's difficult. It's difficult, and I'm not intelligent enough by any stretch to see what they can do. The only thing I liked in the HD1 plans, I didn't like the ski slope, although it was different in that it was an outdoor one rather than which I liked, was there was going to be a small unique music venue, which I thought would have been really good for, you know, breakthrough acts, and you would have been able to get people down for, you know, quite often for that, because there's the O2 Academy in Leeds works brilliantly, you know, it works really well, and little music venues can be quite decent, and then you have a pub, you know, maybe a bar next to it, and then all of a sudden it branches out slowly, doesn't it? So it just needs something, and I hope it gets something, because I'd love the area to be successful and blossoming, and I think we all would, because if it does, the money comes in, and then the sponsors come into the football club, and everything goes up a notch. It's just difficult to see where it's coming from at the minute, but hopefully Kevin Nagle's got a good idea. We're pinning a lot of hope, aren't we, on
Yes, a lot to ask.
a lot to save our town, Kevin. Don't only save our football club, but save our town. Unfair, really, isn't it, to pin that on him? But yeah, I know there's probably a lot of negativity there, but on the other side, it's also got a lot of potential as a place as well. So, like I say, the buildings are fantastic. It's when you come out, and there's not a lot of people around the town centre at times, but looking across at some of it, when you come out of the train station, it's such a wonderful square. Is that I love it. I think it's brilliant. There's not many places like that around. It's fantastic, and you can build on things like that and success like that. Even up the streets as well. There's one or two side streets are fantastic as well. Some of the buildings are really good, and it's got potential because it's got that already there. It's just about trying to harness it and make something different, isn't it? And I think we've talked about that for too long because we haven't really said anything other than it's struggling, have we? We've just said it in about 1,000 different ways.
Yeah.
Fill
the pool with beer.
Fill it Magic Rock. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Fill it with what's your favourite Magic Rock? I like the Dairy Freak. That's my favourite.
I've always been a high wire. I've always just loved a high wire.
A high wire. If Johnny says Town Lager, I can tell he's not really sampled too much.
Someone's got to say, haven't they? Someone's got to say it.
Yeah, can you imagine? That would be. See, that'd bring people down, Tom. Jumping in your tight whities and in there and guzzling. That'd be an interesting health and safety discussion. Yeah. So, but yeah, like I say, different things. But I think that's all we've got time for. Apart from actually one last thing which has come up recently is that Dave Baldwin's leaving. I don't think anyone's probably too fussed. I don't think because he was pretty much kept himself to himself a lot of the ways. The things I heard weren't overly positive about him at times from bits and pieces, which I won't go into. The January window, it was largely acknowledged in some of the circles swimming. I shouldn't really say swimming, should I, after the last topic, but some of those circles that he was largely responsible for the January transfer window. A lot of what happened in the January transfer window, and most of that was absolute tosh. But they had to do something without much prep. But at the end of the day, he went and did the discussions and helped us get a new owner. So I think that's something to be thankful to Dave Baldwin for, that we sat here and he's allowed Dean Hoyle to move on and he's done his job. And the job he was brought in to do, because he wasn't brought in to be the transfer guru. So he was brought in to get us a new owner and oversee that. And he's done that. So thanks to Dave Baldwin. We'll still overlook who you support as a football club. But, thanks to Dave, I'm sure that he's managed to get us new owners and he's done his bit and off he rides into the sunset to another job, I'm sure, where he'll do well. And that's it. I don't know if you guys got any thoughts on that, but I suppose it's just all the best, isn't it, from us, I guess?
I guess he was here for such a short period of time. I think the most we saw of Dave Baldwin was actually in the little YouTube videos. The YouTube series where, he came across perfectly fine, but there's not a lot of insight and it's probably quite choreographed. But yeah, it's there's probably much excitement in that than there is in the Wednesday performance. So we've bookended the podcast with two.
How have we managed to do over an hour? We've done over an hour here after the Sheffield Wednesday game. We've got no idea how we've done this.
Congratulations if you got this far tonight.
Yeah, honestly, if you got past the Sheffield Wednesday game, we appreciate you a lot for sticking with us. And if you click the like button instead of the unlike or dislike button, that would be appreciated too, because I could imagine you're hovering over both right now. But, I think that's it, guys. Anything to add? Any other business? No. Tom, thank you for stepping up. Good to see you crossing over to this side. I'm sure you'll come over. I'm sure there'll be plenty of other crossovers.
It's always a pleasure. It's like getting an England call up, getting on the main pod.
I'll tell Brady that. And Johnny, thanks again. Good to see you back in the game now. Hopefully back on the pod a bit more often. So you swanned off, didn't you, for a couple of weeks to America and had a good time, didn't you? And you away with work at the minute.
Mini hiatus, but back in the saddle now.
Back in the saddle after I thought you'd been in the saddle when you went away with the missus, but never mind. So we'll say thanks to everyone for listening, and we'll be back again next. Well, we won't be back until after the QPR game. So that's it for us.
There's a team that is dear to its followers. The colours are bright blue and white. They're a team of renown, they're the pride of the town, and the game of football is their delight. And all the while upon the field of play, thousands loudly cheer them on the way. Often you can hear them say, who can beat the town today? And then the bells will ring so merrily, and every goal shall be a memory. So town, play up and bring that cup back to Huddersfield. So town, play up and bring the cup back to Huddersfield.